Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Dwoskin. I'm an Associate Dean and Professor in the College of Pharmacy here at the University of Kentucky, and I'm really excited to be here today. Ian McClure and I are going to present to you about this new funding opportunity that we were successful in getting at the NIH called KYNETIC. And so the idea behind this is that NIH supports investigators' inventions, and the inventions come from the academic sector. So you can see from this graph on your left that there were 12,516 total inventions logged from 1990 to 2005, and that the majority or the greater amount of them, 5,572, were supported by federal funds, whereas other sponsors, all in different sectors of the private sector, also had some, but the greater majority comes from NIH supported work. And so inventions come out of the academic institutions because we as academics are innovative and are coming up with new things, and that's what the NIH wants us to do, right, is come up with new products or new ideas that will improve human health. And so a lot of these inventions are licensed, they become patents, and they're licensed by third parties, and that's what the graph on the right shows. So Congress and the legislature, they realize that this is, even though that's good, it's not fast enough. So what they've done is started this phase 0 proof of concept partnership pilot program. And that's what we were successful in getting for the state of Kentucky. And so the phase 0 proof of concept partnership program is to accelerate the creation of small business and commercialization of research innovations from qualifying institutions. And so they're just trying to help us move our ideas and our ideas to improve human health to the point where we can actually improve human health and get these things to the market so that they can reach people. So the partnership is grants that should provide researchers with initial investment and the resources to support the proof of concept work and commercialization mentoring needed to translate promising research projects and technologies into viable companies. So it's not just money to take the product forward or the idea forward, but also mentoring in terms of commercialization. Because I'm pretty sure none of us, at least I wasn't, trained in how to get something through commercialization. So what this does is going to help you understand what the process is and the steps that you need to take to get there once you have something. And so that should help with the pipeline of new innovations to improve human health. And I should have said, in addition to welcoming everybody here, there's a bunch of people on the Zoom from all over the state, and welcome to those people who are watching at the Zoom also. And I think, can the Zoom people ask questions? Yes, okay, cool. All right, so, so the president's management agenda is really to increase, like I said, technologies from lab to market. And it's not just in the lab, it doesn't have to be just in the lab like laboratory things. It can be, it's much broader than that really. So what we're doing is increasing engagement with private sector technology development experts and investors and building a more entrepreneurial R&D workforce and supporting innovative tools and services for technology transfer. So really it's filling the gap from finding something really important to bringing it to the people that need it. That's the way I'm looking at it. And it's a pretty big gap, and it's not information and sort of the knowledge that we normally are thinking about. So it's more the kind of work that Ian does in his tech transfer office. And what's going to happen is we're going to get much more integration this way between tech transfer and the academic who's not trained in that sort of expertise. So what they're hoping to see is a lot of spin-out companies that have the educate the innovators through this proof of concept centers, phase 0 centers. And so the NIH Centers for Accelerated Innovation, or Research Evaluation and Commercialization Hubs, that's abbreviated and it's called REACH. So the NCAI was the first sort of iteration, and then the REACH grant is the second iteration. So what it's really doing, like I said, is it's bridging from the innovation to the patient and human health benefit. So to turning discoveries into health. And so the NIH, from Congress's mandate, has set aside 39, or the NIH budget itself is 39 billion, and the Congress has set aside $1.1 billion to work on this pipeline for SBIRs and STTRs for small business. So that's what this is bringing products and innovations into commercialization to get them to the point where they actually help somebody. And so there's a whole lot of money out there, a lot, 1.1 billion available for what we're doing. And so we just need to be able to access it and learn how to do the grants, write the grants to be able to have winning grants to bring our products to commercialization. So there's been a whole bunch of interesting new technologies that have come out of this. I mean, the funniest one is the Sonicare. How many have a Sonicare type of toothbrush? So does anybody? Yes, a few people. So that came from this program. That's pretty cool, right? I think that's pretty cool. And then we heard about one the other day in Louisville. It was the Icy Hot, right? That was that. Yeah, so Icy Hot, you know, the patch that you put on when you have a hurt muscle. That's also come through the Louisville grant. So NCAI and REACH, this is their kind of the summary of their data. They've had 277 projects funded so far, 56 options or licenses, 2,250 innovators receiving entrepreneurial education and training, over 700 million in follow-on funding, 66 startup companies formed, 50 submitted SBIR, STTR applications, and 27 have received awards so far. But the big thing is that when you go through the phase 0 program, you have a 3-fold higher probability of getting the phase 1 SBIR, STTR. So you're being trained in the process of commercialization. So when you go in with the bigger SBIR, STTR grant and get the phase 1 and phase 2 of those, you're much more knowledgeable about what it is you're trying to do. And so those grants are much more successful. So it's it's really a training exercise doing this phase 0, as well as proof of concept if your innovation has teeth or not. So the Office of Biomedical Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is an NIH group, has changed their name, and now they're called the Office of Small Business Education and Entrepreneurial Seed Development, or SEED, which is cool because the name is perfect. It's seeding new ideas, and that's how they now call themselves at the NIH, is that's what their whole goal is to seed ideas that can be commercialized. So who are we then? So we are the Kentucky Network for Innovation and Commercialization, or KYNETIC. And the REACH is we're a REACH grant, or Research Evaluation and Commercialization Hub. So we're really the KYNETIC hub. And I hope you can see our nice logo. We spent at least an hour on the phone talking about our logo and deciding what to do. So it's purple on purpose because the two research intensive grants that are the PIs, or the PIs come from these two grants, is one is UK, which, you know, bleeds blue. You can see blue all around us here. And the other one is U of L, which bleeds red. So the logo is purple. So, you know, if you know any art, red and blue together make purple, right? So we're purple KYNETIC. And so, as I said, I'm the contact PI, and the lead institution is University of Kentucky, and then the co-lead is the University of Louisville. And at some point, hopefully, you'll get to meet Paula Bates. She's the PI at Louisville. And we have also a private partner, the Commonwealth Commercialization Center, and April Turley is here representing that. April, stand up for a second. So what that is basically a mobile tech transfer office. So the same thing, the OTC office that we have here at UK, April heads that up currently, and it covers all of the 6 regional universities and the 16 community and technical colleges. So basically the tech transfer for the rest of the academic institutions, the public institutions in our state, they also have access to this funding, and I'm hoping a lot of them are on the Zoom and are hearing this presentation, because they are also able to take their ideas and innovations and plug into the system and take their products forward to commercialization as well. So those lines going through, if you can see our KYNETIC logo up close, those lines are actually the roads that connect all of the universities in the state. So they have meaning. So what this is a network for all of Kentucky for us to become a commercialization hub. The whole state is connected this way, and we can take all of our ideas from anywhere in our state and take them forward to commercialization. So they're going to be involved very intentionally, because there's a lot of interesting things going in our smaller universities, and we want to make sure that those interesting things also get commercialized and help people in the long run. And then our last partner is the state. We have the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, or CED, and they are the ones that provided the majority of the matching funds that we had to come up with to be able to be eligible for this NIH grant. So what that means, though, when you think about it, is that the state is investing in this as well. And that's really important. So we have state buy-in, and we're covering all of the universities in the state, no matter where they are. And the little 16 community and technical colleges, those are the little dots. And it makes us look like we have the measles, but you can see it spread all over the entire state, right? That's really pretty cool. So Louisville had a REACH 1.0. So this is the second time that the NIH has offered these funds. And so this is called, our grant, the KYNETIC, is called a REACH 2.0. So Louisville had a REACH 1.0. So we're lucky because we're able to learn from the lessons that they had to take working through the system the first time. So we're really lucky because we're kind of ahead of the game in knowing what to do. So what we learned from REACH 1 about the leadership and governance structure is that it's really important to have shared governance on this. So the stakeholders are engaged and invested in the program. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a few minutes. But what's happening is the senior academic PIs, we both have commercialization experience. So we're going to try to, get you guys engaged in doing this. And then the tech transfer office is a partnership in this particular program and is also on the REACH leadership. So as I said, we as academics cannot do this by ourselves. We have to have the knowledge of the tech transfer office and the people who know about commercialization to help us to make this happen. So we're full-fledged partners in this endeavor. So everything that happens, all the governance, all the shared, all the decisions that are made are shared. And we also are going to bring in external reviewers. We're going to have an external advisory board that will be representative of all different sectors that I'll show you in a second. And what that does is minimize conflicts of interest. So this is our leadership and governance structure. So you see my picture there from UK, and then Paula Bates from U of L. So we're the academic leaders of the leadership team. And then we have Ian McClure here from UK. Ian, stand up. So if you don't know Ian and you're interested in doing this, you definitely need to get to know him. And Alan Morris, who is Ian's counterpart of U of L. You can see his picture there. And then Brian Medford was a representative of the CED of the state. And then April, who stood up a second ago, is the C3 current lead. And then we have a bunch of project managers, and 2 of them came from REACH 1 and are now in REACH 2. So that's Sarah Andres and Jessica Sharon. And then we'll have 2 project managers here at UK, and we have the ad out and are about to make an offer to one of the people. So I hope we're going to have them on board really soon. And then we'll, get the second one. And then C3 has their own project manager. So we have a lot of commercialization expertise in the state. So it started with in 2011 when the CTSA, or the CCTS as we call it here, was funded. And then Louisville got a culture grant. And then after that, the NCI designated the cancer center as, as a cancer, as one of the cancer centers. And then after that, in 2015, they got Reach One, and Louisville also got an NSF I-Corps grant. And then in 2016, we got this AWARE grant, and what that stands for is it's an NSF grant advancing women and underrepresented entrepreneurs, and that was at Louisville. And then, sorry, and then Ian got the Southeastern Idea Hub here at UK. And then after that, there was the Kentucky RISE, which is a state-supported regional innovation for startups and entrepreneurs. So you can see the state has come into this. And then we had the C3 got started. And then one of the regional universities got the EDA I6 RISE. And then finally, we got this Reach 2.0 grant. So there's a lot of things going on, both at UK, at U of L, at the regional universities, and we're going to capitalize on all of this at the same time to help everybody move forward. So, like I said, I have founder experience. So I've worked in the worked through commercialization. Paula has had founder experience, and then Ian has been a founder also of a company. So I think there's one more there, though, right? I thought there were 4. Huh? Oh, Brian Muffer was a founder too. So we have 4 individuals in our leadership who have founder experience. And then you can see here that everybody who is on the leadership team has been involved in commercialization in some aspect or another. So this is a part that's probably more interesting to you. So this is the overview of the solicitation through the exit. So this says it's starting, the RFA is going to be released in January 1, but actually, see, we're starting earlier than that because we're starting to talk about it with this town hall, and they're doing the same thing in Louisville. And April is also traveling all around to all the regional universities, for example, to tell them what's going on so everybody can get ready for the RFA. So the RFA will be released in January, and the pre-proposal is due February 15th. So this is a very rapid, quick kill kind of a structure. It's not like a regular grant not like an RO1 where you get the money and then a year later you have to do a report. This is going to be very quick, and you have to be kind of on your toes with this sorts of funding. So in February 1, the pre-proposals are due. In March 1, we'll review the pre-proposals. Then the full applications, which will be invited from the pre-proposals, those are due April 15th. Then there'll be review of those full proposals in May. And then the proposals that the team decides are meritorious will be sent to the NIH. And the TGC, I forget what that stands for, but basically what it is a representative from all the people who have input into this. So like the FDA, the NIH, what were some of the other groups? Who was it? Oh, yeah, former REACH people and NCI people. So people who know what a good proposal is and what has good probability of making it all the way through, they're going to give us feedback. So the people who get to that point will get the feedback from those individuals. So right from the get-go, even before you get funded, you're connected to the FDA, for example. So that's pretty amazing. And then the project will start July 1. So it's a very quick process, and we'll be doing this so basically every 6 months. So it starts again in the fall. So an RFA will be released in July 1. And so the point though also is that all through the process, there'll be mentoring. So you see the mentoring on the right, and then on the left, and then on the right, you see you're going to get feedback. So all the way through, it's also a learning experience of how to do this. So if your proposal, say your pre-proposal, doesn't make it the first time, there's going to be advisors there to help you to make it better. So the next time, you'll be able to get it. So it's kind of like a pipeline thing. So it's a developmental process of how to do this. So, don't be discouraged if at first you don't succeed, because I'm telling you, this is all about perseverance. You think and getting an R01 is about perseverance? This is like perseverance on steroids. You really have to be goal driven to get to the end game with this. So on this side, it goes into more detail about, who's involved, who's doing the reviewing, what the process is. But what I want to do is point you to the bottom part here. So the idea here is that at the 6 months period, after 6 months comes, so you start off with 50,000, and at 6 months, at the end of the first series, you get reviewed again. So you come back in competitive. So you give what is that? The talk. A pitch. I can't even get that word. Okay, so you give a pitch, and then, so you don't have to rewrite the grant, but you have to give a pitch to talk about what progress you've had and where you are. And then the group decides whether you get the next 50K. So you really have to be on this to keep it going. So if the project is decided it's not viable, then it's exited. Okay, so it's a quick fail. So you want to fund things that are going to make it. So we want to use the money to get as many things in the pipeline as possible to see if they have teeth. And then if you keep going, then the end game is to partner with a company or do a startup or license to a company, a third party, and let them take the license forward. So there's lots of exit strategies, but you have to stay in the process to get the next 50K and the next 50K. So the maximum you can get is 200K. So that would be over a 2-year period. Every 6 months, you get a new influx of 50K of funds, okay? But every time you have to compete. So who's eligible to get this? Well, it's anyone at any of our institutions, which is really amazing, and actually my favorite part. So graduate students and postdocs who are our next generation of innovators are eligible to have this grant, but they have to have a faculty member as a sponsor. But if the graduate student or a postdoc or even a staff member has an idea that they want to take through this, they're absolutely eligible and welcome. They just have to have a faculty sponsor. So the goal is to define and develop a product, and it must be associated with human health, but it's completely disease agnostic. So any disease, any comer can do this. And also any technology type. It doesn't have to be a drug. It can be a device or a test or an app. So even data science people are eligible for this. And you can have existing IP or potential for new IP, and it's milestone driven, like I said, killer experiments, and 200K for 2 years, and it's given in 50K for 6 months, over a 6-month period. So we want to maximize participation. We want everybody to be involved. So staff, trainers, faculty, clinicians, physicians, everyone at the universities are eligible. And we're really interested in having first-time innovators come, because this is a zero phase grant. So it's to test new ideas. It's money to see if the idea that you have works, and has teeth. So it's really people who haven't really tested it out before. It's the first time. It's really a pilot in the truest sense of the word. So there's a low bar to entry. So it's only a 2-page pre-proposal. And as soon as you think you might want to do this, it's a good idea to contact the KYNETIC staff to help you get going with it so that your pre-proposal can be, well done. So like I said, there's going to be mentoring opportunities throughout. So at the initial idea stage, during the full proposal stage, during the pitch preparation, during the pre-award, and then after you get the grant, there'll be monthly project meetings, and the project manager will be there, so you'll get still more mentoring. And then for your progress report pitch, and then during the feedback, go, no go stage. and it's experiential. So it's not that the tech transfer staff or the KYNETIC staff are going to do the work for you, but they're just going to help point you in the right direction. So you're doing it, sorry, yourself when you're doing your pre-proposal and your full proposal and your pitches, and when you talk to the external advisory board and do your external presentations. There's a lot of learning going on here, which is fun. So this is the review. So the pre-proposal, which is 2 pages, is reviewed by the leadership team and the internal advisory committee. And then they're the ones that can vote, but the other people like the project managers and the OTC team, they will be at the meeting when we make the decisions about the pre-proposals. And then the full proposal, which is 12 pages, is also reviewed by the leadership team, but we bring in then the external review board. So it's got a wider review, people from the outside looking in to help decide which project should get the funding. And then the elevator pitch is 5 minutes, and the renewal pitch, the competitive, after 6 months, that's a 10-minute pitch. So what we're trying to do is maximize the number of innovators and innovations that we take forward. Using this approach, we feel there's going to be a fair and transparent review. The proprietary information will be protected. Everybody will have an agreement of confidentiality. And so we're encouraging the reviewers and the participants' engagement, so you'll get to meet these people, and we want to maximize the academia industry interactions. No, I think it was in here. No, I think it's in here though. Did I? No. It doesn't really say who is on it. We don't have the, yeah. So it's from the last slide with the one you made with the boxes. Okay, so we're getting to that. Okay, so this is an example of what it could look like. So in the first phase, with the first cycle, which starts very soon, say we fund 6 projects, okay? And those 6 projects go for 6 months. And project 1, 3, 4, and 6 go to the second cycle. They're successful. But projects 2 and 5 are killed, okay? So then that means project 1, 3, 4, and 6 turn orange. They get their next tranche of 50K. So now they have 100K so far. And we bring in 3 new projects, number 7, 8, and 9. So they're blue because they're new. They got their first 50K. And then in the third cycle, from the first set, project 3 and 4 did well, and project 9 from the second set. So 3 and 4 now have gotten 150K, and project 9 is on its 100K, and we bring in 3 new projects. So you can see how this goes. It's going to be pretty intense and fast moving. And so it's not like a regular grant. There's a lot of accountability. So, you know, there's no waiting around. We have to be ready to hit the ground and run with it to get the next 50K. So you have to be able to show progress as you move forward every time. And this is how it works in the real world, not in academia. So in academia, we have, oh, you know, because I do the IRC too. Oh, my IACUC didn't get funded, didn't get approved yet. Can I delay my money and, you know, have an extra 6 months because you know, the regulatory stuff wasn't working out? That's not happening with this. You make it or you don't make it. You have to go back in and compete again if you found that you were having some issue with something. So we're moving forward with this. So it's, you know, the best are gonna get the funds and go forward to the end game of taking a commercialization approach. So it's real high strung, really. So in the process of this, there'll be a training, there'll be a lot of training. So there's going to be a course, a 6-week training course. That doesn't mean you go away for 6 weeks and become a business person. It'll be 1 or 2 hours once a week for 6 weeks, just so you know all the steps that you're going to go through to get your product commercialized. So I think that's really exciting, and I'm going to take it myself. I look forward to learning what I was supposed to be doing, right? So, you know, there's always stuff to learn. And then those courses and training events will be timed with the application cycle. And then, you know, we're hoping to have people come and tell their stories Ian and I in April were at NIH just Monday and Tuesday, and we heard some amazing stories, and I'll show you that in just a second. And then we're going to coordinate with the other programs in the state so that we can get the biggest bang for the buck. So we'll have a guest speaker series, we'll have networking events, pitch competitions, and then the awards. So these are the resources across the state. You can see there is a lot we have to rely on to help us to make this work. And not only at the U of L and U of K, but the other regional small universities have also things to offer. So this is where the EAB comes in. So we're, Kentucky is home to health insurance companies like Humana and Anthem, and aging, long-term care, home health rehabilitation companies like Kindred and Signature and Atria, and also pharmaceutical and medication device companies like US World Meds, which was actually spun out of UK with George Pagenis, Apellis, Talaris, Bexion Pharmaceuticals, and contract research organizations like Summit and Pharmaron and KBP. And then also we have, Accelerated Health here, who's a specialist in service providers, and health experience. So we have a lot of resources to draw from to bring people into our external advisory board who are not part of the academic unit, but are actual in business of some sort or another that's relevant to what we're doing. And so we're drawing from them for the external advisory board. And that's where we are in getting the grant going, is we're now to the next meeting, we'll send out letters to the external advisory board and get them set. So we're preparing to receive the projects, basically, to do the review. Okay, so I'm gonna let Ian take over for the data part.
Thanks, Linda. So I don't know if it was said in the beginning, it's a $4 million grant we've gotten from the NIH with some match additionally from the state. And then from two of the PI institutions, University of Kentucky and University of Louisville. So overall, it's about a $6.5 million grant program. And so what I'm going to show you is at that level of funding, so there's 5 hubs that have been awarded. So we're one of 5. There's one in New Jersey at Rutgers, at University of Colorado, University of Washington, in Washington, Missouri has one. Is it all of them? I think. And then so out of Reach 2.0, there's 5 hubs. But I want to show you some data out of Reach 1.0 and the NCAI program. So those NIH calls those 2 programs, Reach and NCAI. It's proof of concept programs, and that's effectively what this is, right? The point of these funds and these grants that we'll be deploying are for proof of concept, for proving your concept and developing the product forward from the concept and the idea stage. So some fantastic. Linda mentioned we were just at NIH the past 2 days. Learning about the successes of Reach 1.0, and I'm going to show you guys why this stuff is so important in this program we're so excited about here in Kentucky. So this is the number of, these are some stats from Reach 1 in NCAI, and you can see the number of LOIs or pre-applications, almost 1,200 of them. There was about 600 or so full applications. 365 were selected to go to the TRC. Ultimately, 277 projects were funded. And the most amazing thing about this is that more than 1/5 of those projects became startup companies. So 65 out of the 277. That's an amazing rate. If you took any tech transfer office here at UK, for example, University of Louisville, and looked at the average of technologies that are disclosed to those tech transfer offices from across the campus that turn into startups, much lower, right, than 20% or higher than 20%. So it's pretty exciting. Here's a look at the technology types that were funded in Reach 1.0. Again, that was a 4-year program, 3 or 4-year program prior to renewing the program for Reach 2.0. You can see here that about 20% health IT, 26% were small molecule drug, 20% therapeutic device, med device, 15% was in the biologic space, and then about almost 20% in the diagnostic space. So pretty evenly distributed, right? We're talking about anything that has health impact. We want things from physicians, clinicians. We want things from students, whoever has the best idea. The goal here is truly to fund the most promising health technologies being developed at any institution across this state right now. We want to find those things and we want to fund those things to make sure they have the best chance at getting to market. Here's another look just at the same, the program by disease area. You can see there was about a 30% focus on cancer. But then there was also another 1/4, right, focused on other that you don't see here. So medical imaging, heart, neurology, platform technologies, diagnostics were all included. So it's it's a pretty wide disparity of focuses in the disease areas, indications. And cancer was the one that came out the largest, at least from the 277 projects that were funded by Reach One and NCAI. This is what gets me so excited. So this is how tech transfer usually marks sort of success, right? If you look at the end result, not just at the front end of the filter of inventions and patents and licenses, but ultimately, did those things get to market? One of the things that we'll have to at some point do is attract follow-on funding, right? The follow-on funding is what we have to get through the regulatory process, to get to market, to get to an acquisition stage by large pharma, large med tech, those kind of things. And this is actually pretty phenomenal, right? This program started pre-2014, and it claims over $700 million in follow-on funding from the 277 projects that were funded. There is a large outlier, the $478 million of follow-on funding that was secured in 2018. 400 of that was by one single project. It was an acquisition by a strategic, and I'll show you here in a minute a little bit about that. So that was a very large outlier. But even if you take that one out, right, if you censor the data for that one very large 400 million one, 300 million in follow-on funding is an enormous success, right, for the 277 projects that were funded. And you can see the growth, right, in the follow-on funding that were secured each year, which makes sense if you look at it from an aging perspective, right? And that's a pretty quick timeline. We're talking about products that generally have a 5 to 10, even 15-year pipeline to market to get there. And some of these are attracting 300 to 700 million in funding within the first 5 years of getting funding and then being spun out. A lot of that is the training and entrepreneurial education that comes with the funding. So a few recent highlights. I just want to throw a few of these. We learned some of these at NIH the past couple of days. They were showing these are some of the projects that account for some of that follow-on funding. This one was platelet biogenesis, secured a $56 million contract from BARDA. That was a big announcement that they were all excited about. Third Pole Therapeutics. This was a story that we literally heard firsthand. The nitric oxide delivery technology. It was acquired by Actelion, which is a Janssen pharmaceutical company, Johnson & Johnson. They literally had the inventor and then a mother whose child's life was saved by this technology. And they talked about, they literally told the story. They had the inventor there for the technology who and the mother just thanked the program, right? That this was real. This was a technology that was saving lives. The kid was there too. That's right. Pretty awesome. Yeah, pretty neat, right? And that technology is a recipient of funding from the prior program, Reach 1.0 and NCAI. Here's another one. Notion was a startup that spun out of this program and secured $27 million in funding. Charged drugs for target pain management. Targeted pain management, really neat technology. Again, another success. I wanted to raise those up just to show you that in short order, just in 5 years, some pretty awesome successes that this program develops. You can see here, this is intuitive that the follow-on funding follows an aging cycle, but it's a quicker aging cycle than normally. This is truly acceleration. Right? This is what proof of concept funding is needed. This is why we have gap funds in the tech transfer space to try to fill this gap where a lot of these things might take 5 to 10 years or never to get to market. So the accelerated timeline is interesting to point out. And then the sources of that follow-on funding. You can see when centered for that large $400 million strategic partner deal, you can see it's pretty evenly distributed. There's a little less than 30% of venture capital that has come in as a part of that $300 million of follow-on funding. There are strategic partners. There's additional NIH follow-on funding, other federal funding that have been secured, SBIR awards, about 5% of that $300 million from SBIR awards secured by those projects. And we wanted to highlight this too. One of the outlets that we'll be looking for, exits that we'll be looking for, will be securing SBIR, STTR applications. So you can see here the annual growth from the last Reach 1.0 and NCAI program in number of SBIR applications and awards. And we've seen some pretty awesome success. The Boston-based NCAI or Reach Hub, NCAI Hub was awarded 10 out of 16 SBIR applications. That rate, yep. That's the STTR. Oh, the SBIR. SBIR 7 were applied. Well, so the awards, the 12 there, you see more than the applications are from the previous year, right? Because of the turnover and how they counted the end of the calendar year. But so the 12 applications were from some of the past year's applications that were being funded. So, and you know, the data is still rolling in from 2019. I think the data was as of the end of September, I think that they showed us. But that's pretty phenomenal. So just taking one of those hubs to get 10 out of 16 funded SBIR awards, much. December 6th. I think that rate of success is much higher than normal, right? And that's the power of this program that helps develop very, powerful product-ready technologies. So this is also a show at the number of startups. You can see the number of startups that have grown over time. I mentioned there are 65 startups actually now. This was 62 as the time when they collected the data. That has created 38 jobs. Now you see, how can 62 startups create 38 jobs? Well, one of the things there is a number of these are probably SBIR companies that have been funded and have not yet created actual new jobs. But a number of these have, and actually they showed one of the stories, one of the ones that I just highlighted, was prepared to hire 30 people as a result of one of those deals, right? So these job figures are going to go straight up too. So the economic impact is there. NIH is taking note of that. They were the ones who presented this data to us, so they're obviously focused on these as metrics. And then here's, for those that don't make startups, of course, licensing to established companies is also an exit we'll be looking for. And you can see some pretty neat data here on the growth in the number of options and licenses that are getting done out of this program. I can tell you as a tech transfer geek, right, that follows this data, that the efficacy of this program is proven in these stats, because these stats are far surpass the average percentages of success in tech transfer based on the data collected by the Association for University Technology Managers, or AUTM, on a yearly basis. So FAQs, we wanted to get to a point in this where we can open for some discussion, answer some questions about the process. The points that Linda made are pretty important about eligibility, the type of funding program this is. So that's why the first one, why is KYNETIC different from other grant programs? The focus here is on, it's a non-traditional grant program, right? So it's milestone driven. We will be setting the milestones based on the 50K per tranche approach. And our goal is so that if you don't meet the milestone, then we want to be able to fund additional ones that can meet those milestones. It is product focused. I'll show you in a minute a piece of the pre-application that's due that has a tech transfer statement that has to talk a little bit about the market, your intellectual property position, those kind of things. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how the tech transfer offices involved in this are going to help in that process. So April Turley here, Alan Morris at the University of Louisville, and myself and our teams will be working with applicants to make sure that tech transfer statements can be well buttoned up to make you as competitive as possible to meet some of those requirements. And then, we want to work with you on the pitch. One unique thing you probably saw in this application process is that we require pitching. We don't want to just see paper applications, but we want to see you pitch. So we will be doing training on pitch coaching, talk to you about what pitching looks like and how you pitch, because ultimately the EAB or ERB, the External Review Board, those are investors and industry people who live by pitches and presentations. And those are the people we'll have to pitch to anyway when we get down the line. So we're providing some of that training, and then we're making that a part of the process, the application process. But don't worry, you won't be on your own. We've got lots of help from experts and people that do this on a daily basis. what benchmarks we'll have to meet in the program. So it's milestone driven. You'll have to continue to meet those milestones on Go No Go decisions. We'll help create those milestones through the application process so that we can define go and no go fairly easily at the end of each $50,000 spent. And then those that don't meet those milestones will look to fund new ones next. I think the goal is to fund at least 13 to 16 projects, I think, in year one, first tranche. And then from there, we'll see which ones don't make milestones, and we can reinsert new projects via the competitive process. So who is eligible? This is important. We mentioned staff. So faculty, staff, student or trainees, physicians and clinicians. This is open to anyone with a great idea that can be productized, that impacts health. And that's important. We intentionally made it that wide open. It's also open to those people at every Kentucky university and college in the state, public university and college in the state, including all of the community technical colleges throughout the state. And that's also intentional. That's why, frankly, the NIH told us that we were one of the 5 hubs that have been funded, because we developed this network. We made it accessible to everyone in the state, because great ideas, we know, are coming from everywhere. April has been working with a lot of those institutions, some of which that are here on our Zoom remotely, and we're finding awesome stuff coming from all over the state. So we want to make sure that we're able to fund some of those too. So it's all types of products. I showed the disparity in both product types, disease, and indication focuses. So if you have any questions about am I eligible, I'd encourage you to come ask us, but in most cases, the answer is going to be yes, with a couple of outlying limitations. Does my institution participate? I just mentioned that yes. So if you're a C3 participating institution, basically every public university and college in the state, you're eligible. University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, of course, you're eligible as well. And so there is no disease-specific requirement. The policy on IP. So one of the requirements is that it is able to be protected by IP. So we will be looking at, in the tech transfer statement, where are you in your progression to get protected, if you have already, or whether you can be protected. And so this is going to be important for, especially for the C3 universities, to be working with C3 on that. So here at University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, we'll be looking at requirements related to disclosing your invention to our tech transfer office so that we can protect it and help you come up with a patentability study that shows that this is something patentable if we haven't already filed for protection. And April and her team at C3 will be doing the same thing for all of the institutions out in the state that want to participate in this. The budget, $50,000 per project, up to a total of $200,000 per technology. And so those $50,000 every 6 months will be a focus in how we want to fund this. And if there are questions around that, we can answer those in a one-on-one. I mentioned the tech transfer statement. You'll see this as a part of the pre-application process. Don't get too scared about this. I know sometimes this is something that maybe you haven't thought about. I don't know how to put this together. I'd encourage you to come work with us at the UK Office of Technology Commercialization at the University of Louisville with their commercialization epicenter, and then with April Turley's team at C3 to do some of this. We have tools that can help you do some of this market research. And this is not really in depth. It's only a 2-page pre-application. We wanted to create a low barrier to increase access. So it's a 1-paragraph, but it does need to show some things like market size, targeted market, and why this fits relative to alternative technologies already in the market. Essentially, what market problem are you solving is what we want to help answer in that pre-application, at least that we could evidence in a paragraph, right? And so we can work with you on that in that process. So let me stop there and see if there are any questions. I appreciate the turnout. I mean, we have, I think, 70 plus people either here right now or on the line remotely. But we want to answer any questions as they might arise.
Questions? Yes, you can do it in person, or you can do it in a video format.
Okay, but it's speaking, so that's not slides.
No, we can do slides. I mean, to the extent we can have some visuals. Yeah, and that's part of what we can train you on and work with you on how to create that pitch.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the whole state. It's not. You said 6.
Well, that's what we had in the boxes.
Yeah, there's many more than 6, right? So no, whole state, the whole state. So overall, we will fund in the very first tranche, right? So the pre-application process starting January, we'll fund probably between 13 to 16 across the state. Overall, if you look at with the milestone-driven approach, we estimate that we might ultimately fund anywhere around 25 or more projects throughout the entire 4-year program.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jackie's got it.
And then the second one is about the recording.
Okay. Yeah. So the question about multiple applications is a good one. We can have. So I'll answer that. So the question is, can one person have multiple applications? So the answer to that is you can have multiple applications. I think there is a limitation on multiple funded applications as an investigator. But if there are 2 different technologies that you're an investigator on, I think you can have multiple applications, but it will be accounted for in the funding. Now, we do encourage, I don't say encourage, allow multiple investigators are allowed on any project, up to 3. So that is allowed if there's multiple investigators. And what was the second question? Sorry, Jackie, did I get to the? Okay, the question is, when will this video be available? And the answer is next week.
And Jurgen asked about the pitch, whether it was oral and if you could add slides.
Yeah, we had a question of if the pitch is oral, whether you could have slides. The answer to that is yes, both oral and with visual support.
Yes, Alex. That's a great question.
That's a really good question. The question is, for a student application that requires a faculty sponsor, can a faculty sponsor have multiple students that they sponsor for applications? I don't know the technical answer. I think we'll have to get back on that. It's a really good question. My hunch is yes, that's fine, but we can confirm. Yes.
Yeah. So you were at the very end. You talked about what marketing problem you're trying to solve here. So I'm focused more on healthcare or health problems. And if there's not a big market for it, would that be a significant problem?
So the question is, it's evident. Yeah, it's evident that we're focused on market fit, market application, right? This is all about commercialization in developing a product. And the question is, if the market is small, if it's a niche application, does that hurt? I would say it would be taken into account, but no. I think ultimately we're not trying to just make the most money, right? The goal is, can we develop a product that improves lives that could get to market? Is a goal, right? And so if there is a need that can be demonstrated and this solves a problem in that market for that need, I think it would have good weight.
Yeah, so for example, the third poll, that was a very small market, very small. So it was pediatric newborns and 20% of newborns, and newborns is already a small market. So, and there's orphan diseases. It's a whole nother thing where it's a small market. There's not a lot of people in that, but but it does improve that group. So I would say that's not an issue. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Will you compare that 6 months milestone or research plan? Because this could be active for 2 years, right?
Yes.
Do you write down the whole picture of the study or just focus on the 6 months? And when you renew it, you have to write another 6 months. What is really the research strategy?
Right, so that'll be a 10-minute pitch. It's a pitch, so it's all oral with slides. So you have 10 minutes. So you have to really work with the commercialization team to tailor, because you get 10 minutes, that's it. You can't, it's not like a written thing where reviewers are going to pore over it for hours trying to write a critique. Everything is very quick in this. So you have 10 minutes to explain how you met your milestones and what you're going to do next. That's really what it is.
So I think, Dr. Yu, and so the question is, should you if you believe that the overall spectrum of the research is going to last longer than 6 months, should you show that in your plan, even though you're only asking for funding for the first 6 months? I think it's a really good question. I think the answer would be if it shows that you have a plan to get to a point of productization, and you know that it's going to take longer, it should probably be a part of the application, but we'll still be focusing the milestones on what can we accomplish within 6 months only. So I think showing the whole plan, but also a plan for the 6 months specifically, which we'll work on you with developing what those milestones might work with you on to develop those 6 month milestones is something we'll. The pre-application.
Then you write it. Then you write 12. So pre-application is 2 pages and a 2-minute pitch. The full application is 12 pages, right?
Yep.
And then when you come back for after 6 months for your competition, you're doing a 10-minute pitch. So no writing.
First time you get funded, the full application is 12 pages, right? And then if you have succeeded on those milestones, you want to come back for the next 50K, it's just a 10-minute pitch. No writing again.
Yeah. So I think Lindsay has
another, like, following after 6 months, different from the first 6 months of research plan, so you don't need to write down, just present.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think let's do a Zoom, and then Lindsay, if you had a question.
Jackie. The question is, what is the funding allowed to be spent on? Really good question. I'm going to have to get back to confirm specifics on that. I do know that it's going to be focused on the actual research. Think of direct costs on the research, but we'll confirm detail. Reach One had some details on that. We probably should have included it here, and we can confirm on that question and follow up.
So the question is if there's a postdoc and a graduate student teaming up, and what would the sponsor's role be? So the postdoc and the graduate student would be the PIs, and so there'd be a multiple 2 PIs, and then you'd have your 2 sponsors. I don't think so. Yes. Yeah, so it's, failure is good because you learn from your failure and then you iterate and then try again. So you can still come into the system, but you would be kicked out at that point and money would go to other projects, but nothing would stop you from saying you address the issue and you come back in another series. You could do it with the same project if you had made progress that you didn't make in the first place. And you made progress, you can come back into the system and recompete. So, that happens. I mean, you have failures and you keep going. It's all about perseverance in this.
Jackie, another one from the Zoom. Yeah, so the question is, if you're a student that's going to complete your, we'll just call it your overall relationship with the institution during the application stage, but they want to stay on. Also a good question. The money has to be spent at the institution, recipient institution. So, and the work has to be done there. So I think that's something that we'd have to look at the details of the timing. Yes. So I think the question, if I have it right, is can you combine these funds with other funds for work? Yeah, I mean, you're likely going to follow the same NIH rules for combination of funds. It depends on what the other funds are. Linda, you want to?
So, I don't think there can be overlap, but if you have a tangential, if it's tangential, I think it'll be okay, but if not overlap. So don't forget, NIH is going to review all of the ones going forward. So if they see they're already funding something, they're not going to want to double dip. You follow me? So that if it's tangential, though, if you're asking a forwarding question that's not in your RO1 proposal in terms of commercialization, I think that will be okay. Does that answer your question?
Now, I think one other thing to consider, so the state we mentioned, as well as the University of Louisville, University of Kentucky, have put up some match money here, right, with the NIH for this, but any additional matches could be taken into consideration. But there's already been some considerable match money put up by the state in those two universities. Yes.
Yes, there's no indirects. Yep. We're actually using the indirects to fund this from this. So that's the university's part in a way. Not perfectly, but
yeah. Including some of the entrepreneurial training and things like that. Right. That part of the program.
Yes.
Yes.
Will we be providing set templates for presentations?
Good question. The question is, will we be providing templates for the presentations and pitches? The answer to that is yes. We'll call it best practice documents. We will be providing, and that'll be part of the training and entrepreneurial education. Good softball. Yes. Is just what was the first part? An idea good enough? Really good question. The question is an idea good enough, or how much data do you have to have? Remember, this is a proof of concept program, right? So an idea is good enough as long as you can show that there's some potential for efficacy, right? Some real potential for productization and success based on the studies that you want to use the money for de-risking.
So for example, if there's data in the literature that points to why you think it's a good idea, that's sufficient. You don't have to have your own data to bring it forward.
Now, so two things to caveat that, right? If you have preliminary data, that's gonna count, right? In the review and how strongly we believe that you saying there's potential for efficacy here is accurate, But we want to see all the best ideas. And then the potential for protection is a part of this too. Is it patentable, or can it be covered by other intellectual property and protected as well?
So the third poll is another great example of that. So he based his work, the inventor in that case, based his work on the nitric oxide. What was that award that I got? Oh, like words in the morning.
NCAI.
No, what the Swedes give you. What is that award?
The nitric oxide delivery mechanism?
Yeah, no. So what was that nitric oxide is an endothelium. Help me out, please. What is the name of it? The award, the best award you can get?
Nobel.
Yes, thank you.
Nobel.
The Nobel Prize. Oh God, it's terrible to get old. Okay, so he based his work on the work that was done that was a Nobel Prize on nitric oxide. And then he commercialized it into giving these babies to breathe nitric oxide. So he didn't really have preliminary data so much to start. He was basing it on the premise that he thought that this, from these other information that was in the literature, that he thought this would be a good product. And it turned out that it was. So he didn't have preliminary data.
And now that's...
Yeah, so he got patents, and he has a company, and it was bought by Actelion and then Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, so it's like the premise of an RO1.
So the prior knowledge was that nitric oxide worked for some things. What he developed was a delivery mechanism for babies specifically.
Yeah.
Design patents, utility patents, and now acquisition by Actelion.
So, right. So that was a great idea of a product that was based on literature that was, Nobel Prize winning information about nitric oxide. And then it was really cool. So then he was reading stuff from NASA, and this plane went through lightning and it created nitric oxide. So he put those two ideas together and came up with his idea that was commercialized. So that's about as far, just reading the literature and putting those two things together, but it was a novel idea that was patented, and then it worked out. And then we saw the first kid that received it and was alive and thanked, the inventor and the NIH. Hadn't had the opportunity to thank the NIH for, he wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened. That was really inspiring, really, to the max. I was crying.
Any other questions? Jackie, do we have any on the remote, the Zoom? Okay. Yes, April has a comment.
One of the things that
Here, come up here so I can hear.
Yeah.
One of the things that the University of Louisville had said through their first reach is that they got a lot of applications in that first go round, but they were only going to fund a certain amount. So if you don't get funded in that first go round, make sure to come back, because they said by the time they got to round 3 of reviews, they had a lower number of applications. So don't think it's the quality of your applications, or just maybe a larger quantity. So don't give up after the first go round.
Yeah. So we hope you'll all submit your ideas so that we can get some health going on here. And I really want to see it come out of Kentucky rather than the East and West Coast. Because we have the ideas here. We just have to get them forward.
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah, hello.
The question is, if you make your milestone, can you take a 6-month break before you go to your next one? That's an interesting question. And I think the answer would be yes, if there's some good reason for that. If you don't apply for the next rounds, then you don't get funded for the next 6 months, 50K. So you could choose, I think, strategically, whether that makes sense. Maybe you need some equipment, some things like that to come in before you're ready to go. Yeah, was there a question through here? Yep. Was there a question on the Zoom?
Hello. I'm on the phone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Question about the submission process. Are these going to be submitted by the individual investigators? I'm at EKU, and our sponsor programs office volunteered that they would help us, but that would be my first question. So are we individually submitting? And then I had a follow-up question beyond that.
Sure. So for the question is, for those for example, NKU, are you submitting through your sponsor programs office or individually? I would say individually, but work with your sponsor programs office. The pre-applications are literally just 2-pagers to be sent in, I believe by email. But certainly work with your sponsor programs office, and April here at C3 knows them and can work with them on the program as a co-I on the program too.
And then you had a second question?
Yeah, the second question was, some NIH programs have various funding restrictions, and depending on which, if it's NIGMS or NIEHS that funds it. And I don't know, in the process of kind of thinking if we have to put together a 2-pager, the Accelerate Health program, they had something like, how would the funding be used? And I don't want to propose something that would not be fundable in terms of how the funding would be used. And just try to maybe provide a little direction on permissible uses of funds, or a link to what's not permitted if the NIH provides it. Because some of those rules for us that have great ideas, but we're not at research universities, we may not be most up to speed on all of the ever-evolving rules of NIH and their funding restrictions. So that's something that's just helpful on my end.
That's a really good question. So a question about, can we please, or maybe just more of a request, that can we please provide more, as much information as possible on the use of funds? The answer to that is yes, and especially for all of the universities that are C3 participating universities like NKU. So C3 has a web page that they've set up specifically for this KYNETIC Reach program. And when we launched the open RFA in January for the first pre-application period, we will make sure to have either that information on the web page or a link to it where you can find it specifically for use of funds.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. And we'd be remiss if we didn't thank Dr. Jody Black and Alan O'Connor, who gave us the slides yesterday after doing the presentation Monday and Tuesday at the NIH so that we could show them to you. So thanks for sending the slides.
Any other questions? All right.
All right, thank you all
Thank you,
for
everyone.
coming.
Thank you to everyone on the line.
Yes.
Let's take some things to market.
Good questions.
Thank you.
Guys, in meeting. Do I need to push stop
No,
recording?
you can just do